Welcome back to Real Talk with Chuck and Pam. We have 3 new movies to talk about this week. I think there's 1 streaming or maybe 2 streaming and 1 in the theater.
Yep, 2 streaming, and that's, I when people listen to us, and I wish more people would listen to us, obviously. I think one of the things we do well is to try and separate that out because there is just way too much to keep track of.
Right.
I confuse the names of streaming services anymore. It's just overwhelming. So
It is. And this is what we do. And if it's confusing for us, I can imagine. Well, actually, I just talked to somebody the other day. They were like, we spent a half an hour looking through and then we just gave up. They didn't watch anything.
yeah, there is that whole notion of having so many choices, you don't choose anything.
Exactly.
And I thought that was just me for the longest time when I would look at my bookcase of videos to watch and I would walk away. But I've actually read an article and I've heard other people deal with this. So it's not just me, but yeah, more is not always more.
Nope. I like going to small grocery stores or markets. I like 3 choices for my floor tile. Otherwise, it takes me 5 months to choose it.
Right. Yeah. So, but I think we're gonna winnow down these 3 pretty quickly. And I'm surprised. I think we're gonna disagree on a couple of things. So
I think we are too. I'm kind of surprised. We've been on the same page for a lot of movies lately, and I think I don't know. I had COVID, and now my head is clear. So now I think I'm thinking straight.
Okay, all right. So you saw The Fall Guy last night.
I did.
What'd you think?
I had fun with it.
Mhm.
I don't think it was the greatest thing since sliced bread, but I did appreciate the humor. I appreciated the fact that it was a huge love letter to stunt people and how they are unseen and overlooked.
Yeah, and the guy who directed that movie, David Leitch, who I've had problems with some of his movies. He did the first couple John Wicks, but he's a former stunt guy. So, he brings that to the film and you can tell the difference.
Every single scene was all about stunts. And, sometimes those can get kind of boring. It's a little overkill, no pun intended. But not in this one. This one was just fun, I think, because you knew these were all stunt people doing these amazing stunts and what it took for them to accomplish it. But not only that, it also, I think, was a huge shout out to cinematographers and how they capture these stunts and make them look the way that they do.
Right. And, I guess maybe I should give a little background on this. This, of course, is very tangentially based on the Lee Majors TV show from the 80s. And of course, he does pop up there. Yeah, I was glad to see that.
I was too.
Ryan Gosling has the title role. Colt Seavers, what a great name.
Right?
Great name. And he has fallen for Jody Moreno, played by Emily Blunt. She's a second unit director in a film they're working on. And then this accident occurs that knocks him out for 18 months. He just kind of crawls into a hole, goes into exile, cuts off all communication with everyone. He has a job as a valet at a Hollywood eatery, which sets up, for my money, the best joke in the film. I loved that.
Not since Ferris Bueller's Day Off have we seen something like that.
You're right, and then much better. Out of the blue, he gets a phone call from this producer, Gail Meyer, played by Hannah Waddingham from the Ted Lasso film. She was the producer on the last film. She tells him that he needs to come work on her new movie. The director has asked for her, and the director just happens to be his old love, who is now a feature film director. Well, he goes to Australia, and turns out she didn't ask for him. The producer actually wants Colt on set to look over Tom Ryder. Tom is played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, and he's doubled for him for years. And this guy's really insecure. The producer's worried about him, and rightfully so, because a day or 2 after he shows up, or I should say after Colt shows up, this actor disappears, and he has to find him so that the production won't shut down and to hopefully get in the good graces of Jody again. I don't want to really get into too much more of the plot because it's really kind of silly, and really doesn't mean anything in the end. Like you say, it's all about the stunt. You talked about the stunts, but they were all good, but I wasn't struck by anything being overly spectacular. Um, there is a car chase scene in which he's being pulled behind, and I think he's standing on the door of another car or something. That was pretty good. Everything else was good, but it wasn't anything like, wow, I'm going to remember that forever.
Really? Okay, so I don't know if you're referring to the same scene as I'm thinking about. It was a dumpster that fell off the back of a truck, a dump truck.
That's what it was. Yes, that sequence is good.
Yeah, I thought that was like ballet. It was beautifully done. That one will stand out to me. And you know, the explosions and all of that, they weren't like over the top, but they were fun to
Right.
watch. I mean, you had big explosions and car flips and what it takes for these stunt people to do a car flip. I mean, I rolled my car on I-57. I didn't fare so well, you
Well,
know?
you didn't have a protective cage
I did
around.
not. I did
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, the cars they roll aren't the cars we roll.
Well, and I also got injured by a salt shaker. My fault.
That's the problem. Yeah. No, I mean the stunts are all serviceable, but with a movie, I just expected more in that area. Um,
You know what? I think that it's to me, and we're going to disagree on this point in this movie because these were stunts. These were not CGI.
I agree.
And to do a real stunt, you don't incorporate the CGI into it. And I appreciated that. I liked everything from the car rolls to the hand-to-hand combat and the choreography that it takes to do that. I loved that Jodie, played by Emily Blunt, was a badass. She had some really cool
It was
fight
great.
scenes.
Right. But I'm thinking of the John Wick films. I mean, that's all practical stuff too. And that stuff I remember, and that stuff's spectacular. This one for me didn't raise to that level. This was on the
Okay.
same level as his previous movie, Bullet Train, which I was
Mhm.
disappointed in.
I was too.
And this movie also suffers from the same thing Bullet Train suffers from, was that it overstays its welcome. I
Yes.
mean, it's that last action sequence, again, too damn long. Let's wrap this goddamn thing up. Come on, come on, come on. The thing that keeps me hooked though is their chemistry. I mean,
Exactly.
these two need to make more movies together. They're fantastic.
They are. And I had written in my review that, you know, there was nothing new about this type of a story, but what elevated it was the comedy. And let's face it, Ryan Gosling he walks onto a set and he's going to charm everybody, including the audience. And he just saunters in and he takes command, whether he's being meek and mild mannered or tough and confident. And he's funny. His comedic timing is awesome. Even in these perilous situations, he throws in a line, and it's ridiculous. The movie is ridiculous, but I think that's escapism. That's what movies are about, and I had fun with it.
Someone said that, in reference to Babylon, it takes a movie star to play a movie star as far as Brad Pitt's performance there. And it's the same thing here with Gosling and this stuntman who's basically a movie star as well. Yeah, he
Right.
has that charisma. He's got the charm thing. And he isn't afraid to look like a fool, which is important. This whole sequence everyone's talking about it with him crying, listening to Taylor Swift is brilliant because he's vulnerable and it's subtle. They don't overplay it and it is great.
Yeah.
And you relate to the guy. I mean, again, I hope that these two, Blunt and Gosling, make more movies together, maybe with better scripts. Again, I'm not knocking this film. It was a little disappointing, but still worth seeing for me.
I think it was worth seeing and worth seeing in the theater. Great date night kind of
Oh,
movie.
definitely in the theater.
And I just want to circle back about the whole John Wick thing. Nothing of John Wick stuck in my mind because it became redundant, repetitive, whereas this one was not. And I'll just leave it at that. I know we disagree on this kind of stuff, Chuck, but
I would, I would
I
just
think
say,
it gives.
I would say go back to the first John Wick before it gets too.
Oh, I can't. Okay, maybe someday. Like
I
if
know
I
it's the
can't
dog.
sleep,
I know the dog thing in John Wick bothers you.
it does.
I
It
know it does.
does.
But you must though understand Mr. Wick's reasoning for his mayhem then.
You know what? I think you told me about it one time, and it
Oh,
just
they killed the dog.
I know, and he has to seek revenge. I get that. I get that.
You don't do that to a dog.
No, you don't do that to a guy. I'm looking through the credits right now for this movie under stunts, And there's got to be 100 names under here
I'm sure there are.
for
I'm
stunts,
sure there
stunt
are.
designer, stunt rigger, the stunt double for Ryan Gosling. I have to call a shout out for him, Ben Jenkin. So the stunt man who plays a stunt man as a stunt man.
Well,
So
and they've been lobbying for an Oscar for this for years. And that they still don't have one, yet the Academy is going to add a category for Best Casting Director, which I don't understand at all,
right.
is criminal. And Gosling and Blunt were at last year's Academy Awards, offering up a tribute, a montage, which, is kind of shitty. Give them their category. They deserve
Right.
it.
I agree. And the final song kind of alludes to that as well.
Exactly.
Logan Holiday and Justin Eaton also were Ryan Gosling's. Oh, and Troy Lindsey Brown. A lot of people
Well, he's
performed
on screen an
as,
awful lot of the time.
yeah, yep. So check this out. Make sure you stay for the credits because there is like an epilogue that happens after the first part of the credits. So stick around for that. All right. I think we're going to disagree on another one. Which one do you want to talk about that we're going to disagree on?
We only minorly disagreed on this one, not majorly. I'm still saying
Okay.
it's a thing. Let's go with the idea of you.
Okay. This is interesting. I'm going to give everyone a little background in this. I was excited to see this one. I hadn't read the book. I wish I had.
Was not.
And you were not excited. So isn't it kind of funny that we kind of flip-flopped after we saw the movie? I was somewhat disappointed. I'm on the fence on this one. And you seemed to really enjoy it.
I wouldn't say really enjoy it, but my expectations were low,
Okay.
and I was pleasantly surprised.
So
It wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
okay. All right. I guess my expectations were too high.
What's this about?
It stars Anne Hathaway as Celine. She's like a 40-year-old single mom, divorced, and she's got a teenage daughter, and she's kind of looking for love. Maybe she owns an art gallery, and she accidentally bumps into this boy band singer played by Nicholas Galitzine, I think his last name is
Close
pronounced.
enough.
Close enough. His name is Hayes in the movie. We're just going to call him Hayes. And Hayes is immediately struck by Celine. I mean, it's Anne Hathaway. She's pretty drop dead gorgeous. Um, he pursues her and she succumbs to his charm and his maturity and his very handsome face and body. And they start an affair, and they start a relationship. I shouldn't say affair. They start a relationship, and because of the age difference, he's 24, she is 40. There's a lot of social media backlash, and this also affects her daughter, her teenage daughter, Izzy, played by Ella Rubin. Um, this was all very, very predictable. I thought it was rather bloated. I was a bit bored. I think it spun its wheels in the middle. And there's the ick factor, that's just such a big age difference. I think it does call out the fact that we see this with men, older men and younger women all the time. So now the roles are reversed, but that doesn't change the ick factor for me.
Well, I read an article not too long ago about this and how the article looked at stable relationships where there is, this a big age difference. And the whole point was that, this is other people's problem. If it works for us, it works for us,
Sure.
and so I didn't really have a problem with that because they do address this. I was struck by, I thought they dealt with this in as a realistic way as possible. I thought this was going to be just like a salacious, exploitation film, that it was just going to be all about the sex and, oh, isn't this great? And it's not. I mean, they really do stop and look at the implications of this, what would really happen. And she does, she doesn't fall in bed with him right away. She hesitates. She knows what she's getting into, or at least she thinks she does. She has no way of knowing, what the social media backlash would be. And I liked that. They didn't sugarcoat that at all. And I love how they take into consideration the daughter. I mean, this is a big issue, these days, as far as, self-esteem and mental health and the whole social media backlash that occurs. So I'm glad they dealt with that and looked at, the daughter and how this is going to affect things. Um, Again, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but I think that the chemistry between him and her also helps a
Sure,
lot.
sure. I think if
I
that you
think,
didn't have that, it would be an epic fail.
right. I mean, it took him a while, I think, to get his footing, but he finally comes around. And I like the vulnerability of both the characters when we find out his background and why he would be attracted to a woman like this. It made sense to me. I'm like, okay, I start to get it. And of course, her hesitance about all this makes complete sense as well. So I just found it to be smarter than I thought it would be. I thought it was as realistic as something like this thing could be. And I know you didn't like the ending, but I didn't mind it. Again, it followed a certain degree of logic for me that I could accept it.
Okay. Um, it's interesting that you feel like it dealt more deeply with issues, and I felt like it was way too superficial. I
Hmm.
really, you know what? I don't think it's because I'm getting old, and we've talked about this, and I know my daughter and I have talked about this. I really don't want to watch people having sex on screen.
It's because we've gotten old.
Yeah, my daughter doesn't like it either, and she's obviously a lot younger than me.
We'll talk
Uh,
about this other, I think we both have other reasons why we don't like this either, but we'll get into that
all
on another,
right.
on a car trip.
So I'm on the fence on this one. You're gonna
I
recommend
liked
it?
it. Yeah, I liked
Okay.
it. Didn't love it, but I liked it.
And it's streaming on Amazon Prime,
Amazon Prime.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you can take a look at that and then let us know who you agree with, Chuck or Pam.
It's
Um,
obvious we'll agree with, but go ahead. Yeah, let us know.
and we've got one more movie to talk about, and this one is streaming on Netflix beginning tomorrow. Why don't you take this one away?
Unfrosted, directorial debut from Jerry Seinfeld. It kind of deals with the story about how Kellogg's and Post cereals entered this kind of a product war. They were both developing, and I love this phrase, they're both developing a shelf-sustainable breakfast pastry at the same time. And it was the race to get the product to the store. And of course, we know who the winner was, Kellogg's with their pop culture snack Pop-Tarts. Of course, they're all over the place. You can't go anywhere without knowing what a Pop-Tart is or its knockoff. This is an interesting story. If you read about it, it really is pretty fascinating. But what he does with it is this is a foundation for a very broad comic satire, a very scattershot satire in which he takes on just a wide variety of subjects. I mean, before we're done, he takes shots at corporate America. He takes shots at the media. There's a parody of the space race, 60s fashion. He even parodies the January 6th insurrection.
Right.
It all this movie is all over the place, and it's done in a very broad comic and at times slapstick manner. The cast is unbelievable. In
Isn't
addition
it?
to Seinfeld, who plays um, I can't remember his first name. His last name is Cabana. I love that.
Bob.
The
Bob Cabana.
Bobby Cabana, who was one of the guys in product research and development at Kellogg's. You also have Melissa McCarthy is there as his partner in crime and development. You have Jim Gaffigan as the head of Kellogg's. You have Amy Schumer as the heiress who runs Post, and they, of course, are in constant competition. Let's see, who else? I'm forgetting a lot of
James
people. Oh,
Marsden.
Christian Slater pops up as this very ominous milkman. Uh, Organized crime is also parodied as well here.
Well,
Uh,
and is the lobbies that
and the lobbyists,
politicians
yeah,
pay. I think that was brilliantly done with
yeah,
that. And
yeah.
James Marsden plays Jack LaLanne.
Jack LaLanne, Hugh Grant. I have two favorites. Hugh Grant is this Shakespearean actor who I guess is based on a real guy who is actually Tony the Tiger, and has to say they're great. But my favorite, and I want to see a complete film with this guy, Bill Barr as John F. Kennedy. Oh my God. Oh my God. He's got the accent right, and the things he says are just fall down hilarious. I
Right?
want to see him in a complete movie as JFK. The more I think about this movie, the more I don't like it.
Really?
Yeah, it was a movie that started great and then just got worse for me as it went along. I didn't hate it, but it was exhausting. It was exhausting. I mean, these comic bits just become so unrealistic and so broad that they call attention to. I mean, what's going on with this, ravioli that's walking around with, sea monkeys in it? That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Jack McBrayer, blowing himself up in a lab and they're looking at it from behind a military bunker. For me, the humor just got too broad and the story was lost as a result.
Okay. I was totally entertained throughout the entire movie. I enjoyed every cameo that came up. I loved the guy that played Walter Cronkite and Johnny Carson. Oh my God, Johnny Carson. I thought that was actually lifted from video.
I did too. I did too. That was uncanny. And don't get me wrong, there were points where I laughed. The Cronkite stuff was brilliant.
Right,
That was
right.
brilliant. Oh God, it was funny. Yeah.
And I was thoroughly entertained throughout the entire movie. I was not bored at all. I wanted to see how they're going to wrap all this up. I loved it. Starts off with Jerry Seinfeld sitting at a diner, and this little boy, played by Isaac Bay, George, shows up at the diner with his bandana packed full of his little 1960s paraphernalia. He's running away from home. He looks like a little hobo, and or I can't say that, bum, which was the right way to say it then.
I guess. Yeah, I love that. That was funny too.
That was.
Did you
And
catch the reference of that scene?
did I catch the reference? No, I did not.
It's a Norman Rockwell painting.
Oh, it was. It was.
Remember the guy standing behind the
Yep.
counter? There's a cop on the stool and the
Yep.
runaway kid
Yep.
there, and they're
Yep.
talking. Yeah, it's a
I
Norman. Yeah,
I actually bought that for my mom, a print from my mom from the Norman Rockwell Museum in Connecticut.
yeah.
Anyway, so he's this little boy George has had a tough day, so he asks for some Pop-Tarts, and he actually gets a whole box of them so he can read the
Leave the
back
box.
of it.
Yeah.
Give me the box. Rough day, huh? You don't want to know. And he was adorable. He was absolutely adorable. And so Jerry Seinfeld tells him the origin story, the real origin story of Pop-Tarts. Now, it sounds like you might have done a little bit more research than me as far as who these actual characters were. I just thought the whole thing was just made up.
No, no, these are real people. I've always been fascinated by this. This is a fascinating story. And if nothing else, go to the Wikipedia page on Pop-Tarts. It is absolutely fascinating. And Post lost their shirt on these crappy breakfast squares they had
Country
out.
squares, country squares.
Yeah, country square. Yeah, no one wants to be a square.
Not then.
Yeah, and I guess I want a documentary on this now. I want it to be, I mean, you could have told this story in a comic way, but still kind of stick also. It's one of those stories that doesn't need exaggeration. It's fascinating in and of itself. And again, I don't want to come off as though I'm a curmudgeon, and I hated it. I laughed and I liked a lot of it. I just think he took it too far.
Okay. All right. We're disagree on that a little bit. Stick around with this one too for the end, because we learn a little bit about who these characters really were and what happened to them. I mean, Marjorie Post and Mar-a-Lago.
That is true.
I know.
Absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Cedric the Entertainer was in it too. He was great. There's just so many cameos. I can't even name them all.
Right. Yeah, and with the Bowl and Spoon Awards.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And then that they make reference to the whole tobacco industry with that when hiring outside people for independent studies, which are really just they paid them for them. So I think they do a brilliant job of bringing in all these actual timely events from that era that also pertain to today as well. Like you mentioned the January 6th thing. I was watching it. Chris came in the middle. And I said, I think they're referencing January 6th on this one. This one's kind of
As he shows up at the horns, I mean,
yeah,
he's the guy.
yeah. So I'm going to recommend that people see this one. Are you recommending it?
I'm on the fence. You're
on the fence. Okay. All right. We were both all over the board today.
Yeah, it's awful when I have to carry you, but it happens. It happens.
On that happy note, tell us what's coming out next week, Chuck. You're always on top of that. I never am.
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is the big one.
Did you
Uh,
watch the original when you were young?
oh God,
I loved it.
I had the frickin' Planet of the Apes treehouse, my dear. I had the
Oh,
Planet of the Apes doll things. I watched all the movies. I watched the TV show. I remember my dad, when the fifth movie came out, he just said, "Come on, we're going uptown." He threw me in the car. He didn't tell me we were going. He surprised me by taking me to. It was great. Battle for the Planet of the Apes. Yes, I was completely into it.
oh wow. I thought I was a fan. I think you
Yeah.
blow me away on that one.
And these three that came out, within the past 15 years, I thought were very well done.
Yeah, I did too. I do too. I'm actually excited about seeing this one. So I'm hoping I can make it to a screening of this one. We will see. I will be making it to the Chicago Film Critics Association's festival, which is taking place, I believe it starts tomorrow,
And
May
what will you
3rd.
be doing, Pam Powell?
I am going to be hosting the Q&A for the movie Good One with the director India Donaldson. And this is right up my alley because it's about a weekend backpacking trip in the Catskills, which used to be in my backyard.
Are there
Um,
dogs and kids who need to be adopted in it as well? Because then that would completely be up your alley.
I don't know. We'll find out. I'll let you
Okay,
know.
we can only hope.
So if you're interested in going to see this and watching the Q&A, it's at the Music Box Theater on Wednesday, May 8th at 7 p.m. I would love to see some people there that I know. And it should be a lot of fun. I'm going to be screening the movie this weekend to get everything prepared for my interview with India Donaldson.
Good deal. That'll be
Yeah,
fun.
it will be fun. It will.
Pam's really good at this stuff too, so you will not be wasting your time if you go.
Thank you.
Um, I go to our website, Real Talk with Chuck and Pam, to read my roundup of the Turner Classic Movies Film Festival. I was there last week, had a blast. I cannot recommend it enough if you love classic movies, especially seeing them in old, wonderful movie palaces. I am going to go to the Chinese theater every chance I get now that I've gotten in there. It is gorgeous.
Give us one highlight.
One highlight. Well, there was a couple highlights, but Pulp Fiction, the opening night, seeing almost the entire cast there, was pretty great. As was Shawshank. They had Shawshank Redemption and Robbins and Freeman were there. And the anecdotes they told, and the background they gave as far as what they had to do to get that made. Those were great. Those are great. But I mean, there's so many highlights. Please read my article. Again, it was a whirlwind 4 days, and I can't wait to do it again.
That's awesome. RealTalkWithChuckandPam.com. You can see his coverage there. I will link that up on our Facebook page so you can take a look at that as well. Great coverage. So glad you were able to go. It looked like an absolute blast, but an exhausting one.
It was, but well worth it. Well worth it.
Good deal. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate you listening. Please share and check out our Facebook page, our Instagram, and our website, RealTalkWithChuckandPam.com.